Hello, welcome to my channel, Save Infinity. So in this video, I just wanted to briefly kind of talk about, the whole Dolores canon, QHHT, regression hypnotherapy, whatever it's called, style, session type things. How she created the, hypnotherapy, past life regression type style sessions where you're able to regress back to like past lives or lives on other planets as other beings or what have you, all that cool, wonderful, amazing, awesome stuff. And with all the wonderful stuff that can come out from that and that we hear about and everything, I feel like such an interesting concept with that I thought would just be fun to share, that I like to think about is, kind of with that sort of, way of consciousness working and everything, is how, other beings, like humans in the future or beings on other planets or what have you, could literally use a similar or more advanced process and be doing the exact same thing, right? And so they could literally be having, their own sort of like hypnotherapy or regression type sessions, peeking into past lives, if they will, but to these lives right here, right now. And we wouldn't like really even be none the wiser, right? And so like imagine like literally through your life right now could be another version of you from in the future, or a version of you from another planet or something, literally just like peeking in and perusing around. Especially if you think about the sort of, planets and beings and stuff, how their way of life is, a way of life where they say don't have the sort of traditional reproduction methods we do, or they don't have the typical sort of, intimacy and love and relationships that we do. They could literally be sitting there thinking like, maybe I'll just, regress back to one of my human lives and go experience some amazing love, or, maybe I'll regress back to one of my human lives and go get laid. Like, they could experience and perceive like a whole way of living through us that we don't even realize is happening. And it also kind of gives another interesting sort of, avenue of thought to that whole idea of, spiritual warfare or what have you, or when sometimes people can see maybe a little bit like demonic possession or any of that sort of stuff. Like sometimes maybe the reason people can seem a little bit different, or be acting with what sort of seems like different motives or what have you in that sort of spiritual warfare sense, they could literally be beings, other versions of ourselves existing on other planets, kind of like channeling in, like doing a sort of, advanced version of that sort of Dolores canon, QHHT, hypnotherapy regression, but say maybe their own sort of style or a more advanced style, and, tuning in to us here in our lives now and, kind of peeking through that window, if you will. And so, here we are just like little humans going around, just, could be completely oblivious to it all. And meanwhile, there could literally be a whole like spiritual warfare going on where there's say like beings from this part of the galaxy or universe versus beings in, another part of the universe or galaxy that have say competing motives and want to kind of influence the way humanity goes forward. And they could all be like, in their little pods or something, regressing into our lives here now and trying to like influence the outcomes. There's so many ways that could work and be done with all that sort of connection between consciousness in that way, that I feel like it's just such an interesting and fun way to think about. And I'm not saying in a way to be fearful or anything like that about those sort of things. At the end of the day, you still have free will and the ability to make those sort of conscious choices and decisions for yourself. You don't have to feel like some other version of you from somewhere is like controlling you or something. you know, maybe if you were like asleep enough and not being aware, you know, of your sort of conscious thoughts and actions and what have you, you may be able to be more easily influenced in that way. But, you know, otherwise it's still you being you and them just kind of, you know, experiencing that through you wherever they are in the universe, in, you know, in whatever time, aspect of time and space they're existing. You know, just how we like to do those sort of hypnotherapy regression sessions into past lives and view different things and get information and find that interesting. So could beings, you know, in the future, just humans in the future, or beings on other planets, you know, find it interesting to do to our very lives right here, right now. So yeah, I thought it just, you know, an interesting little way to think about it, to share, because, you know, I feel like we so often don't think about that sort of process being used in the reverse, right? Being used in a way where we're the subject being, you know, viewed. It's just kind of, you know, funny and cool and interesting to think about. All right, well, I might leave this one here for now, but sending you so much peace, love, light, and blessings as always.